أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. ثم أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, today we will be talking about two stories actually that are mentioned in one context in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 243. Start with ألم تر إلى الذين خرجوا من ديارهم وهم ألوف حذر الموت فقال لهم الله موتوا ثم أحياهم إن الله لذو فضل على الناس ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون. So this particular ayah came in the context of asking the believers to fight, to defend their community and to defend their religion. And fighting in the good cause, fi sabilillah, will not shorten your life, and staying away from fighting will not prolong your life. That's the main lesson that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to reflect upon. So the ayat says, have you not considered those who left their homes in many thousands, fearing death? Allah said to them, die. Then He restored them to life. The ulama of At-Tafsir talked about thousands of people among Bani Israel who suffered the breakout of a plague, a disease that killed so many people. So they decided to leave their hometown to go somewhere else with the intention of escaping death. And the story says that when they went to a valley far from their hometown, and they filled this valley, and some narrations said that there were 4,000, others say that 8,000, 9,000, and actually some narrations went to say that the number were 30,000. So the number is not important. Allah said they were in thousands. They left their home, and when they arrived to this valley, God said to them, die. And they all died. And after a while, people came and they found these bones of these bodies, and they brought them together and they built like walls around them. And later on, one of the prophets came, and he knew about their story, so he prayed to Allah to bring them back to life, and Allah told him, call upon them in my name and they will come back to life. So the prophet, according to Ibn Kathir and others, he called them, come back to life, and they came back to life, and Allah ordered him to ask these bones to be covered with flesh and skin and nerves and so on. And then this happened in front of him, and they got up and they said, Subhanaka innaka antal azizul hakim. They were praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they saw, and these prophets saw, that people can come back from death when Allah wants to bring them back to them. So for God, it's not difficult to bring people back to life. Actually, it's more difficult to create a human being than bringing him back to life. So this was the story of this group of people among Bani Israel, children of Israel, who tried to escape death. And it's as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them and wants us to know two things. One is that Allah is able to bring people back to life. So the day of judgment, the day of resurrection is coming, and it's not, as many said, that these dead bodies never come back to life. The one who gave them life in the first place is able to bring them back to life when he wants to. The second important point that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to know, wants the Sahaba in the time of Prophet Muhammad to know, that fighting for the good cause is not going to shorten your life. Don't sit home and expect things to change on its own. It's not going to happen. People have to fight. That there's always conflict between what's good and what's evil. Now, good and evil always are in a state of conflict. That we know. History tells us that, the reality tells us that, and the evil will never reconcile with the truth, and they will never say, okay, truth, you know what, I'm going to give you this space, take it. It never happened. So good and evil always fight each other and push each other. So if you cannot be in the side of the truth, do not be at least in the side of falsehood and evil. This is the lesson that we need to understand. If you are not courageous enough to support what's right, to sacrifice for peace, for justice, for equality, then at least do not support falsehood. Here in this story, it came in, as I said, in the context of talking to the believers that doing what's right, fighting, because sometimes we have to fight, and we fight in different times, different places with different tools. So fighting in a civil society in a modern time, it does not necessarily include weapons, but fighting injustice like Black Lives Matters, and like fighting against police brutality and fighting against corrupt leadership. It does not take weapons, but would take voicing your opinion, organizing, get informed, put pressure to stop this injustice, right? So, but obviously at that time, fighting physically with swords, it was the only way to push back any evil that aims to destroy us. And then the next ayat says that وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ, and fight in the cause of Allah, not in the cause of your tribe, and not in the cause of nationalism or tribalism or the cause of personal gain, but fight. If you have to fight, then you have to fight a just cause. Don't fight for the sake of glorious victory for your family or tribe or your nation. Not to fight to occupy and seize the lands and the properties of others, but fight in the cause of Allah, in the cause of justice, in the cause of what's ethical, and know that Allah is hearing and knowing, right? And then the Quran goes on, who is that who would loan Allah a goodly loan? So of course God does not need a loan from us, but he says that whatever good deeds you do, it's as if you are giving God a loan, and God will take this loan and invest it, and in the day of judgment he will multiply this small amount of money, whatever you sacrificed. God will maximize it and invest this money for you. So you give $10, then in the day of judgment you see it hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is how God reward those who give in charity, those who give their money for a good cause, support good cause, whether it is support orphans or support those who are sick and cannot get nice treatment, those who are in need. Then God will multiply this money for you. So who is that who would loan Allah a goodly loan, so he may multiply it for him many times over? And it is Allah who withholds and grants abundance, and to him we will be returned. Then the second story comes, also talking about fighting, about defending yourself. It talks about the story of known as David and Goliath, or Galut in Arabic, which also refers to the fact that every nation, not only Muslims, because when we talk about jihad fi sabilillah, fighting for a good cause, it's not unique to Muslims. Prophets before that also fought injustice, those who try to defend themselves from those who want to attack them. So it's nothing unique about Islam and Muslims who fought to protect themselves, but all nations before us, including Musa alayhi salam, a great prophet, who urged Bani Israel to go and fight the giants in Palestine, and they refused. And later on, a new leader to Bani Israel came, Yusha bin Nun came, and he led Bani Israel, and they were able to enter the Holy Land. Then the next story begins when the Israelis themselves, they have two kind of leaderships. One is the prophets, the Anbiya. So many prophets came to guide and lead Bani Israel, and there were some kings. And these kings actually used to be very harsh on Bani Israel themselves, and used to fight each other. And eventually the outsiders came and they attacked the Israelites, and they really destroyed them very badly. And the Israelites actually used to fight their enemies and using a chest. And this chest actually like a box that includes the staff of Moses and the tablets that God has given to Moses and his clothes and some personal belongings to Musa and his brother Aaron or Harun. So when they fight their enemies, they always carry this chest with them. And God blesses it, and sakina or tranquility and peace comes to them to support them, and the blessings also comes through this chest. So they actually ran out of prophets. There were no more prophets coming to them. And as we know, the Israelites actually were divided into 12 tribes. They had 12 tribes, as the Quran mentioned before. So the prophethood used to come from the descendants of Benjamin, and the kings used to come from the line of Yehuda or Yehuda. So when they ran out of prophets, there were no more prophets, and the last king died. And then Bani Israel, that according to Ibn Kathir, this was like 400 years after they entered Jerusalem. They actually were just have no kings and no prophets. And the only thing that remained from the descendants, from the lineage of the prophets, was a woman who was pregnant, and they were hoping that her son will become a prophet, because the prophethood came from this line of Benjamin. And according to the narrations, that they took very good care of this lady, and they kept her home, and they fed her well, and took good care of her with the intention, with the hope that she will give birth to a boy who will be a prophet to lead the Israelites. They were being badly defeated, and I forgot to say that they also during the battles of the Israelites and the Palestinians, they lost actually this chest, and for them that was a big deal, right? So at Tabut, as it's mentioned in the Quran, this chest was full of blessings, and they once they lost it, this Galat and his people, when they defeated the Israelis, they actually stole this chest, and to Bani Israel this was disastrous. The last king died, no more prophets, and they took good care of this lady, as we mentioned, and she was praying that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give her a baby boy who can become a prophet and lead Bani Israel. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her a baby boy, and they called him Samuel or Shamuel in Hebrew, because Allah answered her prayer. In Rabbi Sami'u Du'a. So Sami' and Samuel or soul, you can see the similarity. Sami' means that all hearing. So Allah is Sami', who gave them a child, and they call him Samuel or Shamuel or Saul. And he grew up, and they sent him to one of the rabbis to bring him up as a scholar, to teach him the book and to teach him the knowledge that they inherited from Bani Israel. It was narrated that one day this Shamuel, Prophet Shamuel, was not a prophet at that time. He was sleeping in the house of his teacher, and Jibril alayhi salam came to him and called him. And his voice the voice of Jibril or Gabriel was similar to the voice of his teacher. So he said, "Teacher, you need something from me?" He said, "No, I did not call you, so just go and sleep." It happened the second time, and his teacher told him that if you heard me calling again, don't answer me, right? It's not me. I'm not going to call you. So he got the voice for the third time, and the voice was the voice of Jibril alayhi salam, who told him that go and lead Bani Israel. you have the prophethood now. um, so he went to lead Bani Israel. And Bani Israel at that time, as we mentioned, were badly defeated, scattered, no leaders. And he proved to them that he is the prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the great signs that he was the prophet is that God promised him that Allah will bring the chest again that contains the staff and the clothes of Musa and the tablet. Allah will bring this chest back to the house of this prophet. And the angels actually brought this chest to his house, and that was a great sign and great relief and blessings to Bani Israel to see this chest coming back to them. So the story begins in the Quran by saying that, have you not considered the assembly of the children of Israel? The Mala. The word Mala in Arabic means not just assembly, the elites, the leaders, the heads of the tribes who came to, after Moses, the Quran says, when they said to a prophet of theirs, send to us a king and we will fight in the way of Allah. We need a king. We need to fight these enemies. We need to, bring our glory back. We need to remove them from our land and fight them. And this prophet said to them, would you perhaps refrain from fighting if fighting was prescribed for you? And perhaps the prophet also knew children of Israel at that time, they committed so much atrocity, so much great sins, including killing some of their prophets. So they were corrupt for so long, and they intentionally, disobeyed God and refused to follow the direction or the guidance of their prophets. So they have been badly defeated, and they suffered as a result of that. So this prophet told them that, would you, if God sent a king to you, would you refrain from fighting? He said, no, we want to fight. We just need a king. We need a leader. And why shouldn't we fight? And they said, why shouldn't we fight in the cause of Allah when we have been driven out from our homes and from our children? And guess what? When fighting was prescribed for them, they turned away, except for a few of them. It's easy sometimes for people to talk the talk, but not walk the walk, as we say. We want to fight. If God sent us a messenger, we will fight. And by the way, this happened also in the time of the Prophet, when many of the Muhajirin, they said, we wish God would allow us to fight, but when fighting became or prescribed for them, they said, we think we're not ready yet. Quran talked about this in Surah An-Nisa. ألم تر إلى الذين قيل لهم كفوا أيديكم وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة فلما كتب عليهم القتال إذا فريق منهم يخشون الناس كخشية الله أو أشد خشية. When qital was prescribed for them, that some of them were used to fear people more than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they said, yes, we want to fight, but when fighting became obligatory upon them, تَوَلَّوْا إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ مِّنْهُمْ. So it's not just some of them accepted and some rejected the direction or the guidance, but they all rejected it except few. And that's the first exception is made. Just keep with us, because you're going to see a lot of people getting out. So from the very beginning, they turned away, did not want to fight. And if you don't want to fight, then you have to accept humiliation. And this is how it works. So you accept living in humiliation and defeat, and your enemies will just continue to abuse you, your children, your family, or you have to fight. So the Prophet ﷺ said that no people will abandon the jihad, by meaning that defending, except that they will suffer humiliation. You have to defend yourself. Obviously, on these days, there is no international law, and there is no UN. People can resolve their disagreements peacefully and diplomatically. So there is no way for you to stay alive except defending yourself. You have to use your own muscles. You have to use your own hand to defend yourself. So there's no other way to defend you. Otherwise, you'll be attacked. You'll be attacked all the time. So they said, yes, of course we will fight. Why shouldn't we fight? We have been, driven out from our homes and have been, defeated and humiliated. But when fighting was prescribed for them, they turned away, except few. And also when they asked their prophet to appoint a king for them, the narration said that he brought to them a stick, a yardstick, as we say. And he said the king is the one who fits this measure perfectly. So they kept trying, everybody, tried to see, and no one fit this height. And there was someone who was quite tall and big, strong, well built. And he had a donkey, and he used actually this donkey to carry water from the well and deliver it to the people's homes for fees. That was his job. He's not coming obviously from a noble family. He's a very just simple person, and he is the only one who fit the length of this yard. And their prophet told them that was Talut. I think in the biblical tradition is known as Saul. They said, how come this poor man can be our king? He's not coming from the descendants of Yehuda. He's not come from the family of the kings. How can he be our king? Does not make sense. So first of all, most of them refused to fight. And when the prophet actually told them, this is the king, this is your new king, they said, how can he have kingship over us while we are more worthy of kingship than him? And he has not been giving any measure of wealth. He's not wealthy. He's not from this tribe. He's not just. He said, the prophet said, indeed, Allah has chosen him over you and has increased him with abundantly in knowledge and stature. The ilm wal jism. Jism means body. His body is strong, and his ilm, his knowledge of how to lead and how to, go to wars and how to plan for wars and so on. So he's strong physically, and he's strong also because he has the knowledge. Remember when we talked about the story of Musa, inna khayra man istajart, if you want to hire someone, hire al-qawi, strong, and amin, and trustworthy. So, and this is one of the main source of corruption in any society or organization or government or community. When people are hired or giving authority based on loyalty, not based on qualifications. So the Israelis actually expected someone from a certain tribe, from certain families, from certain social status. But when they found out that the new king is a simple person, his name is Talut, the prophet said that Allah chose him and he gave him authority because of his knowledge, and he gave him physical strength. And Allah gives his sovereignty to whom he wills. Allah yu'ti mulkahu man yasha. Qul illahumma malik al-mulk. We talked about this ayah in one of the Friday khutbahs. Allah gives sovereignty or authority to whom he wants. Wallahu yu'ti mulkahu man yasha. Yes, from your perspective, he's not qualified, but Allah chose him and gave him what it takes to get the job done, a good leader. Now see, people have nothing to do with leadership, nothing, no intelligence, no experience, no view or no vision, no imagination, nothing, and are in leadership position because they're coming from certain families or are supported by certain families. And this leads communities to disaster, one failure over the other. Anyways, So their prophet said that the sign that this is your king, chosen by Allah, that the chest will come back to you, we talked about, فيه سكينة من ربكم وبقية مما ترك آل موسى وآل هارون تحمله الملائكة. Indeed, a sign of his kingship is that the chest will come to you, in which is assurance from your Lord and a remnant of what the family of Moses and the family of Aaron had left, carried by the angels. The angel will bring this chest to his house. Indeed, and that is a sign for you if you are believers. What could be clearer than this? They lost this chest for so long, and that was a source of sadness. So now to restore this chest, to see the angels carrying this to his house, that was a clear sign. That was the reality. Talut has become the new king for the Israelis. Now we have a prophet, and he told him Allah chose this to be your Talut to be your king. Now those who decided to go and fight, the few who decided to go and fight, they went with Talut, and some actually said there were about 80,000 among the men who can fight among Bani Israel. So Talut organized his army, and they start going to the other side of the Jordan River today. But before he approached the river, he stopped the army and he said, "Inna Allah mubtalikum binahar." So Talut told them, indeed Allah will be testing you with a river. So whoever drinks from it is not of me, and whoever does not taste it is indeed of me, except one who takes from it in the hollow of his hand. So you cannot drink in full, you cannot take water with you, although you can imagine they are crossing the desert and they are thirsty and they need water. But he told them that is a test for you. Why? These are the few people who decided to fight, and now these few are going to be tested. The only thing you can do, just take some water in your hand and drink it. That's it. You cannot take water with you, you cannot drink more than this. But they drank from it, except a very few of them. There's another, some actually said only 4,000 remains, and 76 of them said we don't care and we want to get more water and so on. So he said, if you do that, you cannot join us. So they crossed the river only with 4,000 out of 80,000. So the few of the few. And then when he had crossed it, along with those who believed with him, only those who obeyed him, they said, there's no power for us today against Galut or Goliath and his soldiers. Again, so when they crossed the river, the few who remained with Talut, they arrived and they saw the other army. Are giants, they're big, and Galut or Goliath is so big, so powerful, and the army is much bigger than theirs. But those, Quran says, those who were certain that they would meet Allah, said, how many a small company has overcame a large company by the permission of Allah, and Allah is with the patient. So this test actually of crossing the river, I think we also sometimes face something like this when we want to get more. We want to get much more than what we need. So we are tested in our life. We make decisions based on our desires, our doing the right thing, or just want to spend our entire life trying to get more and get more and get more and get more. So this test was necessary because, again, in the time of talk, everybody is a champion. But very few actually will walk the walk. And those who walk the walk actually have been also examined again. So the best of the best, those who are so determined, those who know exactly what they want to do. Fighting is not a game, it's not easy, it's not entertainment. It's someone goes to sacrifice himself fighting for a good cause. those are willing to pay the ultimate price. There must be a good reason for that. So the Quran repeatedly says, when you fight for the sake of God, for the sake of justice, for the sake of defending yourself, and not for the sake of increasing your properties and having control over others. There are two kinds of wars: wars as a necessity and wars as a choice. Sometimes people choose to make a war because they think they are in advantage position and they have more power, so they can defeat their enemies. So they make a decision to go to war, go to fight. But some other wars are wars of necessity. And in Islam, it's always a war of necessity. Fighting is the last resort. Try to avoid it as much as you can, but there's no other way to push back than just fight. But you have to have a clear intention why you are fighting. That's a war of necessity, not a war of a choice. So we see here, Quran says in verse 250, Surah Al-Baqarah, and then when they went forth to face Goliath and his soldiers, they said, "Our Lord, pour upon us patience and plant firmly our feet and give us victory over the disbelieving people." This Quran, imagine, this Quran comes to the Sahaba in the time when they have to fight. This actually was in the time of Hudaybiyah, in the time when there was peace or truce rather between Muslims and the people of Quraysh of Mecca. They have an agreement that they will have no war for 10 years. These ayat were revealed in this time. But when the Quraysh people breached the agreement, that Muslims had to go and take Mecca by force. Fortunately, they did not use this force. Well, Muslims were much stronger at that time, but they did not use this force. They just entered Mecca peacefully, and the Prophet forgave the people of Quraysh. And since then, Mecca is the center of monotheism. So this ayat came just to teach them how to make dua. So you prepare, you pass all tests, you get well trained, and then you make dua. You pray to God. They made this dua. لما برزوا لجلوت وجنودي قالوا ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا. Our Lord, pour upon us patience. Not just give us some patience. We need a lot of patience to be able to stand against this bigger and stronger army. And plant firmly our feet. Because sometimes people get shaky and they hesitant, they run away. To stand firm, this firmness and this support and power comes only from God. So they're praying to God to give them patience and to plant firmly their feet so that they don't run away and give us victory over the disbelieving people. And then the story goes that Galut or Goliath used to actually provoke. He walks between the two armies, huge, very big, and provoke the Israelis and said, "Okay, anybody to fight with me?" But of course, nobody wanted to fight him until David. Some narrations say that David was with his father, with his other 12 brothers, so a total of 13. He was the youngest. And other narrations said that his father sent him to check on his 3 brothers who are in the army, and he was younger, 16 years old. So Dawood or Dawood alayhi salam saw the permission of Saul or Talut. He said, "Yes, let me go and fight him." He said, no, you're young, and this is Goliath or Galut. He's very tough and everybody's scared of him. He's the head of his army. But Dawood alayhi salam said, "Yes, I can take care of him." And he actually, Dawood alayhi salam, as the Quran also told us, he invented so many different kind of weapons. And one of them is the sling. They said sling. That he put this rock in it and he turn it and then he shoots, and he was very good at it. He always used to hit the target. So he took 5 stones and he took this sling, and he actually came out, and a lot of conversation happened between Galut and Dawood. But finally, Dawood alayhi salam was able to aim at his head, and the stone actually came between his eyes and Galut died right away, and that was a huge victory for the Israelis. And they won this battle thanks to David and his bravery. And Saul actually gave him his daughter in marriage, and he became the next king of Bani Israel. فهزموهم بإذن الله. So after this beautiful dua, this preparation, Quran says, so that they defeated them by the permission of Allah, and David killed Goliath, and Allah gave him the kingship and the prophethood. So Dawood became the new prophet and the new king. There were a prophet and king. Dawood alayhi salam got these both. Allah gave him the kingship and the prophethood, and taught him from that which he willed. Allah chose Dawood, gave him the prophethood and kingship, and he gave him the authority. وَشَدَدْنَا مُلْكَهُ وَآتَيْنَاهُ الْحِكْمَةَ وَفَصْلَ الْخِطَابِ. In Surah Sad, Allah says, وَشَدَدْنَا مُلْكَهُ. We established his sovereignty and kingship firmly. And we granted him al-hikmah, wisdom, وَفَصْلَ الْخِطَابِ, good judgment. Look at conflicts and he makes good decisions all the time. The story of Dawood or David and then Sulaiman differs significantly between the Quran and the Old Testament. Muslims believe that prophets are chosen by God as good example and good role model for others. But the way they've been described in the Old Testament, that shows them that they are very corrupt people, and they got, envious, and they kill people to marry their wives and all these kind of things, which we cannot believe, because why would God choose a corrupt person to be a prophet? It does not make a lot of sense. God chooses the best of the people and give them the message, and they convey this message by their words and by their actions. So if a prophet is a corrupt, then obviously nobody will follow him. He does not deserve to be a prophet in the first place. So the story says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Dawood such great authority, prophethood, and kingship. And then the last part of this ayah says, and if it were not for Allah checking some people by means of others, or examining people by means of others, daf'ullah, Allah repels people by means of others, the earth would have been corrupted. But Allah is full of bounty to the words. There will always be people fighting in the side of good, and others are fighting in the side of evil, corruption, selfishness. Always try to be in the right side. Always support what is right. تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق وإنك لمن المرسلين. These are the verses of Allah which we recite to you, O Muhammad, in truth, and indeed you are from among the messengers. I hope you enjoyed the story and you learned something from it. And inshallah, I'll see you next week. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك وعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.